Again, we'll be doing Mentimeter. If you have comments, please chat us up. We'll be watching those. Wendy, if you can keep your eyes on the chat for me. And then again, like I said, we'll be trying to keep our webcams on. And so I'll be having you directing you to on some certain times to turn your to interact with us with your cams momentarily.
Yeah. All right. I'm checking the chat. I got it.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. So then, yeah, we'll be talking about EMIS or EMIS and SEM. We'll have an update on some of the North American collaborative research, talk about some of the other events happening through the rest of this year. Lots of good things. So our featured topic, EMIS and SEM. Here are my quick thoughts. Quick thoughts in a nutshell. These are my thoughts. This is not an expert thoughts. We'll go through it in some great detail. We had 25 respondents to the survey. But here's what I think. So EMIS is amazing, solves some of SEM's biggest challenges, which are data. Data is some of the hardest things we have to work with. And then with that, it's kind of this yin and yang, in my opinion. Like SEM creates this organizational demand for the data that EMIS provides. So they kind of fit together so well. And again, definitely in theory, they're amazing. So that's the good stuff. The challenging stuff is, and again, this is stuff you all know, and especially the EMIS experts that we'll have here talking momentarily we'll share, is that, of course, data itself doesn't save energy. It's people that do. And I guess you could say people with equipment and controls that do save the energy. And so it's more of like an enabling solution and does lots of things. It can help to reinforce the savings over time. All kinds of great things can come out of it. But yeah, so knowing what it is and what it isn't is important. And then the second point on the less than good thing is that adding one more system for people to use is not easy in the best of times. And it's also hard to maintain over time. So having someone change what they do to look at another system or to integrate that into a system they already use, that's not nothing. And again, our expert guest experts here will be able to share some perspectives on that. But again, also then maintaining over time, it's a trick, it's a challenge. So what is EMIS? And actually, Elliot, this comes from you, from the thing you worked on in 2014 when you were with PECI, a couple of inventories for the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance on behalf of them. But basically, I think it's a pretty decent definition here, that EMIS is a set of software tools that store, analyze, and display energy consumption data, and as enabling tools that support users' efforts to improve the energy efficiency of their facilities. That's a pretty simply, and again, it has a lot of words in it, but it's pretty straightforward. That said, that's 2014, 8 years have passed since that time, and things have evolved. So we asked this question. Let me make this a little bigger. And I will be sending out the slides for this webinar, and so you can look through all this in detail. You don't need to be taking notes if you wouldn't like to. But asked a number of questions throughout, and this one is about what features or functionality does an EMIS have, in your opinion? And so out of this 25 respondents, people chimed in. And so I'll call out a few things. So one is, this is kind of hard to read, so I added these little average numbers here on the right side of the slide, and that kind of color coded as well. So you can see basically really dark green. Darker green equals things that are more common appearing in the respondents. All right, thanks. Oh yeah, thanks for muting yourselves, everybody, if as appropriate. So please do that if you haven't. You can see the darker green things. So for example, addressing electricity and gas, it's pretty straightforward. Or things like capturing and analyzing, displaying energy related data, for example, weather and production. Having an end user interface, like for customers to interact with, was more common than having a program administrator interface for like the back end to look at potential report on multiple customers. It wasn't infrequent, but it was, again, not as frequent as the end user interface. Of course, it being web-based is a pretty decent definition. Most, how to say this the right way, a lot of programs I've run across over the years, the SEM programs, are kind of foundationally based with having some kind of performance tracking tool that's just is in Excel, and it does the deed. The price is right. There's a number of reasons that it's good, and so I think one thing, again, to differentiate that from EMIS, I would say, in my opinion, is, let's say web-based is a core part of what that is, the delineation between the two would be that. But there's a number of other things just to call out here that are of interest. And again, even if they're less important, it's still just something that is handy to kind of know and think about. Whether you're looking at different EMIS platforms, if you're a product manager for your organization, to think about all the different features. Many of these are maybe on your radar or things that are already on your feature list. But for example, having smartphone apps, or engaging with energy team activities or ISO 50001 implementation, supporting the addressing of GHG emissions, of energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, again, compared to more fugitive emissions. Integration of on-site generation or energy storage, utility bill analysis, different than consumption data, can actually comparing that to what's in the utility bills, and so there can be some value in having that kind of functionality. Integration with other platforms like materials resource planning or MRP, automation, or environmental health and safety like EH&S platforms. All those can be of value, again, even though they appear less frequently in the respondents in the survey. So all kinds of things that could be in it. And definitely in the survey here, and again, this will be a little more cleaned up in the final deck I'll send you all out, but you can see some of the open comments from folks here. So we had 25 respondents. I should say that 8 of the respondents said that their firm does develop or deploy EMIS. So that may color things, and we'll kind of call it out. But again, at the same time, those people are definitely more familiar with EMIS as well. And so again, definitely recognizing again a lot of the perspectives they were bringing in their responses. And so thank you to all of you who responded to the survey. When we're kind of understanding the people that did respond, we asked the question of, where are you with respect to an EMIS offering in your program? And so you can see a number of respondents kind of ranging from not doing it at all, maybe being open to it, but not having a timeline, to then having more of a timeline between the next 9 to 12 plus months, 3 to 6 months, or currently doing it. And lastly, we did have 4 folks that did say that they'd formally deployed EMIS in their program. So again, we definitely had, again, like 8 or so. Maybe you might say that 8 or so would be in this tall bar. But then even if you did subtract it out, you'd still see a good range of interest. And again, we've been seeing a positive, a lot of interest in the attendees here today. Yeah, it's definitely something there for sure. A couple of points that people called out, talked about, for example, in California, there's an EMIS assessment that's a part of the SEM program design. A couple of pilots and programs that have been happening in New York, as well as in with Excel Energy's territory in Minnesota and Colorado. And again, some other kind of color here. And again, we'll show all this in the slides. As far as what your thoughts are in EMIS, and this question, by the way, I made the options, and as I built out the questions, and I was like, it sure sounds like a negative question how I characterize this. But then in the other questions I've got that I think are much more positive about the different values and ways to think about EMIS. So one of these options is relatively negative. The first one, one is relatively positive, and the rest are different reasons that it can be challenging. So one is one challenge is that it does require work. For example, ongoing data cleansing to keep it useful, and definitely know, like for example, Zach, the product manager from Cascade Energy, will be talking in a little bit. Talks about that. You have to maintain it, and having quality over quantity is very important with respect to the data. Definitely, you need to have enough end users that are gaining value, not just perhaps one person, but trying to figure out how do other people get value out of that EMIS information. They may need to interact with the system, but they should be maybe the recipients of the reports. They could be stakeholders that you're communicating with that information. Definitely want them to make sure that the end use customer employees are using it enough. And that's, again, that's a critical thing. The cost is not nothing. I think a lot of the solutions have been evolving over the years. and being responsive to that. Definitely, I think it's from my view, there's many more solutions, platforms that are potentially more cost effective and or could be integrated in with other kinds of programs. And then definitely, again, like I mentioned before, that kind of yin and yang, that's the issue of SEM, energy management, that EMIS can help solve that core need. Lots of good stuff here. Thoughts that people had. Let's keep going though. I want to get to some other more interactive action with you, and again, get some of our featured experts talking. This is like features or functionality that people find most and least valuable. Again, I put this move over here, so it's always in the same place. Things that were more valuable would have the higher score, and less valuable would have the lower score, or again, like lighter color. So identifying real-time or near real-time anomalies was definitely more common. Again, I would say all these things are not uncommon, but comparing to other facilities, this is more on this one here. This first one is kind of typically more like in the benchmarking, what you would think of. I guess that one question that's come up is Energy Star Portfolio Manager in EMIS? And if you think back to some of the definitional items up above, I would say it probably fits the bill of at least a rudimentary one, and especially for certain types of sectors where the data can support the analysis and presentation of can be of value. But yeah, so this is kind of more benchmarking outside of one organization. This is more like within an organization, and then this last one here, comparing to yourself, which is really then kind of comparing to your baseline. So kind of benchmarking up here, comparing versus comparing yourself to a baseline, which really, this is what a lot of course M&V is all about down at the bottom. What makes an EMIS succeed? All right, so if you're rolling out an EMIS, if you're considering doing that right now or going to be doing it soon, these are factors that people weighed in on. I would say the most common ones, dark green, all relate to buy-in. Buy-in at the operator level, okay? The people that are actually going to be changing something in the use of compressors, or the use of the HVAC system, or whatever the systems are, that they're bought in, that they are in some way interacting with this data or believing in the data to make them investigate, to make a change, or to reinforce and maintain those changes. Executive level buy-in, also very important, to have them be aware and understanding, again, believe in the data and believe it's an important thing, and using that data then to kind of drive change throughout the organization. But definitely, I was almost surprised to see that in a good way, I've seen this myself, is like the importance of mid-level management buy-in. So I've definitely seen where operators and executives have a disconnect in organizations. The executives have bought into the EMIS, the operators have been trained, but the mid-level management doesn't follow up, and they don't hold people accountable to make sure that they are looking at that data and doing something with it. And so, again, very important to have that buy-in throughout. But for everything else, yeah, some good things here. Again, making sure that it's cost effective, of course, that it's gonna work. That they maintain that focus over time. Again, also very important. But I would say all these things are not unimportant. But if you're going to focus on one thing, definitely the buy-in is the star of the show.
Hey, Chad, there's a question in the chat from Richard, and it says, perhaps one challenge in interpreting these survey results is that every respondent has a different idea of what EMIS means. Is that true? And I can't remember if on the survey, if you put a definition at the top, or if there was a general interpretation of what EMIS was in the survey.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, yes, I would definitely agree. This very I'm going to go ahead and call it messy. It's just a lot of stuff, a lot of color. It's not like there's one color here that that it was all red and everybody agreed that EMIS had all these things. There's a wide variation, and it was even in look at the lack on the low respondents. It wasn't like no one said yes to these things, and it had complete buy-in and other things. It was not unanimous by any stretch, and so yeah, it is. It's a great call, Richard. That different set of opinions, maybe it's just based upon the platform that you work with, Maybe it's just based upon what the kind of problems you solve or the challenges you've seen from customers and users that kind of color what you're, how you look at things. Yeah, definitely what's in the definition wildly impacts that. Wildly impacts how you're going to respond to things. Such a great call out. All right, last data eye chart is the awareness of these EMIS resources. By the way, this is really interesting because we asked this question. These are things that I knew about. These things that exist out there. Again, a couple of things that Elliot worked on a number of years ago when he was with PUCI. A report that Richard Hart from Cascade, he and I worked on together for NIA a year or so later, kind of taking the inventory and kind of moving into kind of how program administrators work with it. A bunch of great in our CAN resources that Peter Bassett has either been intimate with or helped Natural Resources Canada to deploy. Some great DOE resources and a resource from the Institute for Market Transformation. All great stuff. I then asked an open question. I said, yeah, what else do people have? And the two main things was a set of materials coming from Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, which I was frankly unaware of. I'd kind of forgotten about a lot of the EMIS work that LBNL had been doing, and went to their website and was pretty wowed by the number of things they had that were very current. I would definitely say, while a lot of these things here are not strictly focused on the industrial sector, they may tend towards those things, versus a lot of the LBNL materials definitely don't shy away from the commercial sector, or maybe more focused on that. And we can have Elliot describe a little more of that in a moment. But they're impressive. A lot of the things that are out there that LBNL has. So definitely would be directing you to check those things out. Okay, so that's the core things. I'm just looking through any other points to ask. That's the question of, yeah, what are we not asking the survey that we should? And one person said, plenty of questions, thanks. Or you asked too many questions. Thank you all I'm obviously pretty enthusiastic about this topic. So thank you all for your responses to this. Again, it makes a very rich conversation. So before we get into, I'm gonna stop my share so we can see all the webcams better. I'm gonna ask you all this. I said before that we're gonna interact with you all. I want you to find a piece of paper. Find a piece of paper, could be white, yellow, the Post-it note, that's paper. Find a pen or a marker, something you can draw on said paper. And I want you to draw an emoji. So everyone know what emoji is? If you're older like me, it could be an emoticon. I don't know what they called them before that. Some image that shows how you're feeling right now. Double points for crayon. Nice. Yes, Wendy. If you can get creative, you get your kids' markers lying around. Draw an emoji on the piece of paper that you're going to put in front of the cam, and then we're going to do a quick look at that. So again, two things required, or three things. One, paper. Two, writing implement. Ideally, a thicker ability, and then third, to turn your cam on to show this. So okay, emoji.
Chad, is the emoji related to anything or just any emoji?
I would say how you're feeling. Geez, Elliot, wow.
Elliot drew a poop. That's fantastic.
It wasn't specific.
Yeah, I know. I was saying like something related to how you're feeling, based upon
Okay.
yes.
I'm impressed at how good you are at drawing doo-doo.
Okay, I'm looking at
Adam's feeling
Andy,
computer oriented.
Jay, yeah. Okay, the question mark. Pamela Burkle, nice. Yeah, that's great. Rory,
Masha's smirking. She's doing a little smirk.
Looking over here. Dave Hall, I like it. Robert, ooh, nice little mountains. Hold yours up, please, if you can. If you can do those. Michael Koch, he and I think alike pretty much, as does Derek Okada from SE. Hello.
Michael's
Murray's got,
sticking out his
Murray-
tongue.
Murray's got thumbs up. That's
Yeah.
pretty good drawing,
Yeah.
Murray.
He and Tucker are both
Yeah,
in the
Tucker
thumbs
too.
up. I'm looking at Malcolm. Come on, you got to turn your cam on to play.
Yeah. Diana's winking.
Yeah.
She gets
Anna
a
Kelly.
little wink and a smirk.
Melissa, did you do one yet? Did you draw your? Oh.
Paul, I can't see what yours is. Are those? Is that hockey
Okay.
sticks?
Oh, Todd, you
Are
got to bring
thinking
yours
about
closer.
hockey?
Closer in.
I
Closer to
like
your
Marie Claude's mind being blown.
Holly Farah, if you can turn yours on. Oh, here. Did you just speak? I think we got some. Josh, I like it. Josh Pachman, Ninja Cat. I love it. John, these are great.
Todd has a little sun that he's twirling. It's a twirling sun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
This is really nice. Nice. Okay. Well done, everybody. You passed the test. You drew something, you shared it with your webcam on. That was a lot of fun. All right, so we're gonna get back to the screen share and get to our get some EMIS perspectives. So back to this share screen. I think. Okay. Can you see it again? What are you? Sorry. Quick check.
Good.
So my slides. Okay, great. All right, we've got 3 people who've agreed to share for a few minutes some of their perspectives. They do a lot with the EMIS. The first of these people is Peter Bassett from Energy Performance Services. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Chad.
And thank you so much, Peter. Again, Peter has, like I said before, has been working with EMIS for a long time. Peter is Canadian, so he may say EMIS.
Hey.
We will all follow along perfectly. So I will go to the first slide here, and we can go from there. So Peter, take it away.
Yeah, so I guess a few messages or thoughts around this EMIS for me. When I first got involved in it, maybe 14 years ago, I found people thinking of EMIS as a thing, as a software or a technology. But whether it's correct or not, I broadened the definition of EMIS to an organization using information to drive energy management actions. So really, it's about the integration between, on the left side, the measurements, capturing that data through PLC networks or distributed control systems, storing it in data historians, and then transforming it into information that gets integrated into processes inside organizations whereby people take action. And so to me, this is pretty critical because I found a lot of, as I call it, boxes with blinking lights when I first went out and researched this EMIS. And, you know, money had been put into building systems, but they were sitting there. And I think they were sitting there because of the right side of this diagram really wasn't considered in scope for intentional design. And so the integration of the information into processes that the organization uses to drive action and appropriate information for different users is really critical. So if we go to the next slide. This is my mountaintop. Okay, so this is a plant in Canada, a pulp and paper plant. They make tissue paper. And we helped them build energy indicators with their other process indicators. They call them center lines. So upper and lower control limits for the energy, the steam, the electricity, the gas on the tissue machine by grade of paper, by mode of operation, depending if they're producing, they're in a maintenance cleanup mode, they're in a downtime mode, setting targets for those, and they can see red, yellow, green. And this organization has line-centric teams. So call it 90% of the energy in the mill is consumed by these two machines. And so they have line-centric teams. They have an operator, process engineer, supervisor that work together on how this process works. And we built the energy indicators into what they're doing. And they now, this is part of their process, part of the culture of the organization, that they drive and manage energy. They know when they're drifting into yellow or red. They treat them like events and they correct. So I think when we talk about EMIS as though it's a separate thing or a software, for me, I don't really see it that way. I see it as energy, information-driven energy management. So then if we go to the next slide. This is in a paper, ACEEE paper, that I wrote with Kevin Dunbar of Stellantis car manufacturer in Michigan. On the left side are different organizational elements. On the right side are all the uses in this, call it 3 million square foot car manufacturing plant. So they have compressed air, chillers, lighting, HVAC, process energy, all of that. To the left of that are all the different systems generating information around the energy used in this plant, the energy used by these subsystems. All of that was already there. What we did in SEM was working with forming an energy team, build that operational control table to say, where should this subsystem be at in this mode of operation, assign responsibility for who owns that performance and that target, and then track that. And so again, we didn't have to install some new software here. We leveraged what they already had in place to enable and boost energy management effectiveness. And so I guess what I'd like to throw out there to get people thinking about is change the paradigm in how you're thinking about this. Would you say there's no opportunity for driving better energy management actions with energy or with information? And I think we know, I'm sure there is, but the art of this is to integrate it with the people and the processes, and as much as possible to leverage what's already there, assets that are already there. And that gets at, I think, a couple of the weak points that Chad brought up in the beginning. If it's another system to maintain, that's a problem. And I forget what else you said, Chad, but maybe it was the people piece. And when I looked at the scoring, the highest value was those operator, executive. And that's what we find. It's getting people the right kind of information they can use in the daily, weekly, monthly processes they have to look at performance. So building it into their systems so that it starts to really stick and get used. So that's how I see EMIS. I see it as this evolution of information-driven energy management. And I think we get unstuck from it's a software, it's a meter, it's a anything thing. And we think of it as an overall process of an organization using information to drive action. So that's my short attempt at throwing something out there.
That's so great, Peter. I think, well, there's so many great things in what you said. And even this visual here, I just love because it's like you're doing SEM over here on the left, and you're trying to change things over here on the right. And the EMIS is like the window. It's like the window into what's going on, and for these people on the left. And so, yeah, and like you said, if you can do it in a way that it isn't one other system, not that it's guaranteed to be better, but it's less likely if you can integrate it into their DCS, like the visual displays they already have, then it's like one less system they have to work with or to remember to look at and so on. So I think there's a number of things in what you covered very quickly that are very, very powerful.
Yeah, and Chad and Peter, we got two kind of comments in the chat. Kit Butler says, it's interesting. It seems that EMIS is driving ENMS. I've always thought of it as the other way around, which is kind of similar to making the EMIS visible. Sounds like it's key from Josh with Prism Engineering. And I think that's true, right? Like you can't change what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the information, and then you've got to have the people on the other side.
Yeah, and I see the EMIS and ENMS as hand in glove, right? ENMS is ultimately trying to drive performance improvement, but visibility on performance is valuable to the organization to tell, are they being successful at that, let alone seeing the consumption they're trying to improve or control. So I think they're really two parts of a whole.
This is Kit. Thank you for that, Peter. Can you say which came first in this situation? Were there EMIS systems in place before energy management systems started? Or
exactly, Kit. So all that stuff in that energy management information was in place. You know, they had Accenture doing all their bills, DTE, the utility providing, you know, real-time information platform, Baywatch monitoring the compressed air systems, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff was there. The thing we introduced that's really funny is that operational control table was just a little Excel table we made. We just said, in this mode, this system should be at this consumption level. And if you're down for longer than 8 hours, the system should be there. And then we built those accountabilities in with the people who controlled those systems, and they drove a lot of good improvement. So, but all those systems were already in the factory.
That's great.
Thank you.
Let's go to and Peter. Thank you. That was wonderful. Again, there's so much to what you said in a very short amount of time. Let's go to our next person, Zach. Oh, I know Zach has some thoughts on sequencing and how to think about how you attack these opportunities. And implementing. Zach is the product manager from Cascade Energy for their Sensei Energy platform. And so with that, we'll go to Zach.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thanks, Peter. So as Chad said, I'm Zach Podell-Eberhardt. I'm a product manager, Cascade Energy, and one of my responsibilities is setting the roadmap for Energy Sensei software, which is a SEM collaboration platform with some EMIS capabilities. So I think about this topic a lot of EMIS and SEM. So I'll take a few minutes to share my point of view on that nexus between EMIS and SEM. So most of you here probably know Cascade. We've been in business for about 30 years. We're an energy efficiency program implementer focused on the industrial and ag sector, and we implement a number of industrial SEM programs. We also have a software arm. We created Energy Sensei about 10 years ago because we needed a tool to support our work with corporations that needed to track energy use of their sites in real time. So unlike the clients Peter just referenced, our clients didn't have the appetite for a full-blown complex EMIS, and they didn't have an EMIS in place at the time. So Cascade's consulting arm has stuck to the industrial and ag sectors, but our software targets the commercial SEM market as well. So next slide, please, Chad. Our target market is organizations that manage energy continuously and at scale. So that means multi-site commercial and industrial enterprises and DSM-sponsored SEM programs, energy management programs that work with a wide breadth of participants. We've seen SEM programs struggle to manage energy and energy project data as they scale to 10 sites or even hundreds of sites. And we really feel that a collaborative EMIS can help SEM programs scale and address those pain points. So next slide, please. So today, Sensei is an SEM collaboration platform with EMIS capabilities. And Cascade's goal is to put Sensei in the hands of SEM participants and coaches early in an engagement so they can manage energy projects, track energy performance, share data, and report progress. And from our perspective, that timeline is critical. We really believe SEM participants should start using an EMIS while they have a coaching team to teach them how to get value from that EMIS. And we really want to maximize that overlap between SEM and EMIS to maximize those coaching opportunities. And maximizing those coaching opportunities is better for the participant, the coach, and the program sponsor. And ultimately, it can drive more energy savings. For example, some of those areas of value could be habitualizing the act of reading energy profiles, creating visibility and accountability of energy performance, and fostering collaboration between participants and coaches to prioritize efficiency projects. Just as an analogy, launching a basic EMIS early helps the participant long-term as well. So imagine EMIS as a bicycle, and you want an SEM participant to learn how to ride that bicycle. So first off, the SEM coach can be the training wheels to guide the rider as they learn. Second of all, nobody wants to learn how to ride a bike by sitting through a PowerPoint on how to ride a bike. They need to get out and try it. So once you teach that participant how to ride the bike, they'll have a better sense of what customizations they prefer, what features they need, and what price point makes sense for them. So next slide, please. So you might be thinking EMIS platforms are too expensive, too slow to launch. I can't fit that in my program. And I really want to challenge that statement because I think a successful EMIS launch can and should happen in stages. And it can start just with utility meter level monitoring and modeling or benchmarking. You don't have to start with the diagram that Peter showed for a 3,000 square foot auto manufacturer. You can get there over 5 or 10 years, but that doesn't need to be the starting point. So initial data acquisition cost can be a barrier, but EMIS platforms offer a number of ways to get energy and energy driver data into the software. And that can scale based on the price point and the timeline you're working with. So if you're thinking about adding an EMIS component to your offering, it's important to think about this data access. Does the EMIS platform need to install pulse metering hardware like IoT hardware to acquire data? That might increase the cost. Or can the utility provide interval data to authorized vendors through something like green button connect my data, or some sort of custom integration through something like Schneider Electric's Energy Profiler Online, or just a simple SFTP file transfer. That can lower costs and really increase innovation. And then is the participant going to automatically push a report from their production reporting software, or can we just ask them to manually paste in their production data? So those are all questions to ask when understanding how to launch an EMIS in stages. And your SEM contractors are a good resource to solve those problems because they're motivated and they're ready to help.
Great, great. Zach, this is wonderful. And again, outstanding perspectives. In the interest of time, we're going to go to our third guest expert, Elliot Crow. Elliot is the program manager at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where he's working on commercial building data analytics and advanced M&V research. Elliot, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Great to be here. And hearing you talk about my old PECI days and work with Nia, and seeing a bunch of names on our attendee list that I've not worked with for a while, I'm feeling kind of misty-eyed and nostalgic. So I'll do my best to keep it together. So as Chad mentioned, the majority, almost exclusively all the work that I've been involved with at Berkeley Lab has been on the commercial side. And maybe we'll see here what's transferable. On the left of the screen here, this is the way we frame EMIS capabilities. To the left of that graphic, you see all the various data sources that go in. The majority of what we see is interval meters and building automation system data going into the data warehouse, which is typically cloud-based in the commercial sphere. And then what you can do with that data could include the monthly data analytics, which is benchmarking. it's good, it's a best practice, it's not very actionable, can help you prioritize, but we don't spend a lot of attention on the monthly side of things. When we get to energy information systems, interval meter data analysis, advanced M&V, the top couple of graphics on the right-hand side show some examples of that. Looking at load profiles helps you identify anomalies in time, and also helps you identify anomalies between meters that you expect to be acting somewhat similarly, but maybe you observe differences that could point to potential issues. We also see a heat map there, which is a great way to look at consumption in 2 dimensions over the seasons and also across each hour of the day. They're very useful. If we go back to the graphic on the left, fault detection diagnostics is the next block of capabilities, taking building automation system data, applying rules or machine learning to identify systematic non-optimal conditions. And these are tools that really go beyond building automation systems in terms of their sophistication to look systematically at what's sort of out of whack, not simply looking at what's sort of out of a defined point specification range. It's looking at deviation from what you expect to be optimal. These are becoming very popular. And at the bottom of the graphic, you see automated system optimization, ASO. And these tools kind of take a subset of your system and can optimize and continuously vary control parameters so you can optimize either for lowest energy use, lowest demand charges, maybe lowest energy cost, depending on what your priorities are. You can dynamically optimize. So we talk about these as capabilities, not tools, because any given tool can include multiple capabilities. We go to the next slide here. I'll just give a couple examples. These are both based mainly around fault detection diagnostics. These are organizations that do have the energy tracking as well, but we see a lot of success in the FDD side. So on the left, University of Utah Health implemented fault detection diagnostics. They started out with a pilot to work out their processes. And again, we've heard that said a lot today. It's really about integrating into the process. They have a remote monitoring center with 2 full-time engineers. That's a subcontract organization that leads that piece. And then they've integrated the analytics into their weekly meetings with their operations team, so they can actually sort of identify, track, and see that faults are closed out. On the right-hand side, University of Iowa is an example of a company that's taken their FDD and connected it to their computerized maintenance management system, CMMS. And just to give a sense of scale, if you have these rules-based approaches in an FDD tool, for an organization like University of Iowa, they might get 4,000 fault flags in a day. It's a massive amount of data. So it's really important to have a way to prioritize, and even if it's rough estimation of impact, to be able to prioritize those. And then they work out what's urgent, what needs to be addressed right away, and what can they just build into their predictive maintenance schedules. So I just had a few minutes to say that. I will also separately, while discussion's continuing, I'll drop a few links into the chat to some public dashboards that I'm aware of, just so you will have some examples of the public-facing aspects of some of these kind of EMIS tools that some people are implementing, just to have some visuals on that.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you so much, Elliot, and also thank you for the last minute again. Just frankly, me accidentally stumbling almost onto the LBNL work, thanks to some of the comments from the survey respondents, and just saying, oh my gosh, I have to reach out to LBNL and see if they could be a guest speaker. And so thank you so much for making that happen. And very interesting things. Yeah, one other quick thing I would just call out is and Zach sort of hit on this as well, is while some of the things I was calling out at the beginning that makes EMIS hard or can undermine it, frankly, we've all learned from. And whether you're like Peter and Zach and their teams that do a lot of EMIS implementations every day, or the organizations that Elliot works with or is aware of through his efforts. Either the technologies have gotten better and they're more robust. Some of the features that I'm seeing in the chat between Kim Crossman and Richard Hart about integrating demand, peak demand management information, like those different kinds of feature sets, as well as some of the things also again that Peter and Zach were talking about, and making the data transfer easier to implement. And then frankly, again, us all getting better at how we what we realistically expect to do with that data, and how do we keep that in front of people at the right frequencies, giving them the right pieces of information that they can do something with. And so again, it's very much a dynamic. We're in a dynamic market. A lot of the things, all these things that, again, the heat maps and so on, these things, not that they didn't exist 10 years ago, but they were much more rare, those kinds of features and functionality. And now it's almost like the price of entry for a lot of the different platforms out there, which is again really, really cool, because you can gain some great insights and do some great things with that information.
Yeah, Chad, one of the things that this got me thinking about from a program administrator standpoint is, what are you doing now around information to support your customers? And what's one step you can take to move yourself forward, right? Like an easy one, maybe what Ray Seeger says is just start the utilization of heat maps, right? You don't necessarily need new software to do that. So if you're not doing that, what's the next step you can take to start integrating information and helping your SEM participants get the processes in place and the employees in place to start utilizing that data, and just take them one step at a time, especially if you're, in continuous SEM, right? Where you've got people at every year. What can you do each year to move them forward towards a formal EMIS if that's where they need to go? That's kind of what I've been thinking about, right? How do you move people forward?
That's great. Yeah, I was talking to Zach from Cascade. Zach and I were talking on Friday, I think. And Zach was talking about, they don't, he and his team don't push Energy Sensei first or always. They don't say the answer's got to be Sensei. They say the answer is almost definitely going to be looking at your data and trying to do something with that. And then from that, figuring out, okay, which way do we go with this? And maybe Sensei or an EMIS makes sense. Or maybe it's not what you need right now. And again, but it starts off with, again, finding some data and doing something with that. And then figuring out, okay, where do I go from here? And again, if I had more granular data, or if I had different pieces of information that could tell me different stories, how could that help me? And do I have the capacity, the organizational knowledge and bandwidth to do something with this data? And I thought Zach's points were really spot on.
Yeah, can I
please
add one thing to that, Chad? I mean, we see a number of customers asking, hey, we want to submeter this or that, or all these different energy centers, or even down to the motor level. And we say, great, but what are you going to do with that? Is that really how you want to spend your money right now? And we often push them towards like, hey, let's make sure you're getting value out of just looking at the utility meter data first. And then, okay, if that's helpful, now what's the next step you can take? But in most cases, early in an SEM program, there's probably better bang for their buck to spend money on getting energy savings, doing energy projects, than going and installing a lot of submetering. But at the same time, there's a lot of value they can get from pretty low cost, low switching costs, low onboarding, just looking at their energy data online.
It's great. It's great. Thank you, Zach. And thank you again to everyone who responded to the survey. Thank you all to the questions people have been putting into the chat. And again, thank you again to our guest experts who agreed to present and provide some of their perspectives. We do have some other quick updates non-related to EMIS. Peter will speak again, though, as one. He's also our research lead in the leadership team for North American Collaborative. So I've got a couple slides here just to kind of give a quick update to people about research. Peter, are you ready?
Yep.
Great.
So last year, the collaborative is continuing to look for research it can do to help grow this industry of strategic energy management. And so Canadian government was interested to look at SEM as a vehicle for carbon reduction and to determine how significant could the SEM industry be in meeting Canada's carbon reduction goals. And so ACEEE was engaged to carry out the research, to interact with programs across Canada, and to come up with a statement of potential growth of carbon emission reduction, and also help perhaps the government to focus on policies that could further accelerate this type of a vehicle in the marketplace for delivery of carbon reduction. So just to say, that report was produced last year through the North American Collaborative subgroup that does research. And there's a link there on the slide here for the report if you wanted to see that report. And maybe we'll go to the next slide. So now we had the idea, well, doing such a study in the United States would be very interesting. What is the possibility for SEM to deliver carbon reduction in the US? And of course, there are a lot of programs out there generating energy savings. Accessing the data for those to feed back into modeling, to do forecasting, of course, is challenging. But in essence, the objective of this is to develop a US picture. And part of it is to consider, are we looking at just growing the base of what's already out there? Is there the possibility to expand SEM to other, sectors like commercial sector, institutional sector, et cetera, or even to get into some of these edge opportunity zones? So we've written that up, the description of this work. Our collaborative is actually putting $15,000 into this. US DOE is also committed funding to it. We're still looking for probably around another 30,000, so it would be a $60,000 effort. But I wanted to give a brief update that that's where we're at. And certainly if any organizations are interested in this or contributing to this, we'd be very welcome to hear from you if you're interested to participate in that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate the update. Our last couple minutes of the webinar, we've got an update from Katie, the chair of the leadership team. Just a few quick words from her.
Sure. Sorry, let me unmute myself here. So I just wanted to thank everybody for attending the webinar today. There was great discussion on EMIS. It's always an interesting topic. I also wanted to take a moment to thank all of our member organizations. It's because of you guys that we're able to keep plugging along with the North American SEM Collaborative. So thank you for that. And also our member organizations help us pick the topics for our webinars and our QMRs. So they're the ones that voted on all of our topics, including the one that we talked about today. Our next quarterly membership roundtable, or QMR, will be held in May, with our next webinar coming up in June. And then after that, oops, sorry, my computer just popped up saying it wanted to restart. Oh. After June, we will be having the SEM Summit in August, which I think Wendy might talk about in just a minute if we have time. If not, teaser for our next next communication. And last but not least, we are going out to renew our annual memberships. So we will be asking our members to renew their memberships. So be on the lookout for those communications. And for those of you on the webinar who are not members but would like to be, please reach out to your favorite leadership team member and we will get the information out to you. And if you are not sure if your organization is a member or not, you either can reach out to us or check our website. So that's my little spiel, and I will pass it back to Chad.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. Outstanding.
Thank
you. Yeah, we do have, well, so yeah, here's our engagement structure that Katie just described, and then put into calendar form. This is the event, and so you can see our next quarterly member roundtable, or QMR, in May. Is the featured topic will be on next generation SEM, or next gen SEM, next gen SEM. I don't know, we'll work on that, what we call that. The next webinar for everyone, for all of you, would be for the supporting SEM alumni, engaging SEM alumni. And then some cool topics that Wendy is just put into the chat just now to evaluators, people that evaluate programs. We're going to be pulling some of the deep thoughts that they have surfaced in the SEM evaluations they've done. And so we'll be sharing those, having some discussions, breakouts, how to address some of the deep thoughts from the Mike Bakers and Anna Kellys and all the, the folks that help us to evaluate and understand how our programs are doing. So those will be the big key things. You can see some of the other topics we'll be hitting here later on in the year. And then, like I said, we are again, we'll post this recording with this PowerPoint slide. We'll have all the links to all the resources, all kinds of great information. So with that, we are at time. The message from Wendy, calling all evaluators. We'll be reaching out to you just to see about trends and so on. You can email Wendy at wendy.gibson@energytrust.org. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep doing the great work.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
Chad.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Chad.
Bye-bye.
Here.
Thanks all.